live?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the forecast with Mike Barra, Mel Carmine, Ron Partain, and George H. Lewis. It's an all-male version of the forecast today. We don't have Laura. Elisa, we kind of have in the background, but the poor thing lost her voice. She's got that virus going around. I had it where you lose your voice. I didn't completely lose my voice, but I lost it a little bit. So it looks like it's just going to be toxically masculine forecast today. And we got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Mel, first of all, let's get to everybody here. How you doing, Mel Carmine?
Doing great. I know that we want to lead off with astrological star map. I think George wants to lead off with that. I think he's got some interesting stuff of what's happening and how the stars are lined up. So why don't you take it away, George?
Absolutely. Delighted. Hi, guys. I mean, I think what's interesting, just following what's going on specifically in Iran and around the world, is a lot of people are still going to be in fear because they're being triggered by what I call as the old Saturn. And Saturn is the law of structure and the law of control. And Saturn is in his weakest position in the zodiac. He's in his detriment in Aries. Moreover, he's conjoined Neptune. So what we're dealing with here is a total destruction of the old Saturnian system. It is the criminal syndicate, the cabal, that is literally being dismembered. And we're seeing that play out in Iran too. And I'm a great fan of Gene Decode, and I think some of his latest stuff is powerful, and the evidence is overwhelming. You know, I grew up partly in London. I'm British, obviously, and I grew up with a lot of
you're Canadian.
Tell me, Mel, you didn't tell me about that.
But you see, don't get confused here because I'm an American citizen. So the voice.
Okay, all right. Well, you got some redemption there.
No, I've always had a real healthy skepticism, indeed cynicism, of my birth country. And I've lived now here in the United States for over a Jupiter cycle, over 12 years. And this is where it's at. And the point is the Ayatollah placed there by the alphabet agencies in 1979 was really a fundamental central point of the dark, literally the black rock energy. There is a black rock, and I've got a lot of this information from the recent podcast of Gene Decode, and many of you may have listened to them. It's really evidential that some of those sites in Iran, Persia, were really where the dark, louche energy, I mean, we're talking off-planet energy of control, of demonic entities, and they are being dismantled. And I have goosebumps as I say that, and it aligns with astrology. That's really, Mel, what I wanted to share with you all today and your listeners, is what's happening in Iran and around the world. And, you know, it's going to be focuses on Israel more and more. And, you know, we all know the Q post, saving Israel to last. At the end of the day, this Khazarian syndicate, and it's not even just Khazarian, these AI non-human entities, hybridized human entities, Draco-reptilian, some people call it, it's more than that, are being taken out. And the astrology shows that with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries. So the last time we had a Saturn-Neptune conjunction at the 1 degree Aries was 12,000 years ago. So we are dealing with a massive shift in civilization. You know, this is antediluvian in terms of the fall of Atlantis. And here we are this time, consciousness is at a different level. We're not going to have the polar shifts. We're not going to have the destruction like we would have done. That Armageddon, that whole point of the apocalypse is really the destruction of the old Saturn and not the destruction for we the people. It's a renewal for us in a way that is unprecedented in the collective human memory. So that's why the David Icks are still in fear, and I get it, because they're always going to see where the past is. This is part of the new Atlantis. This is part of the American prophetic. You know, think Kim Clement. Think, you know, what was his name now, the prophet from the 1740s who prophesied George Washington, Sir William Hope. And so here we are, we're renewing our vows, if you like. We're renewing the new republic, which is connected to the Atlantean prophecy. And I am very positive, and the astrology backs that up.
Yeah, you know, George, that's interesting. I was going to say thank you for doing a promo for my 2010 book, The Choice, which I wrote all about that, and about how the astrological alignments actually affect physical reality and human consciousness, and just giving you all the scientific background for that. And yeah, I said we were going to be in this time of incredible transition starting in 2012. That's what people don't understand about the Mayan calendar. It was the beginning of this cycle of vast change where we get to completely rethink our entire culture, society, how we relate to each other. And I think, yeah, we really are in the middle of that. So it's gratifying to hear you say that the astrology that you're dealing with on a more temporally local timeline, like 2025, just fits right in with that. So I appreciate that. And hopefully I'll sell some copies of my book. My book, thanks to that. Everybody, I just put it in there. It's called The Choice. It's on Amazon. Go ahead and get it. And you know, again, there are things happening actually today and that have happened in the last few weeks that are completely in alignment with what you just said. And I you know, the first one obviously being, look, you know, there are massive financial changes coming. Mel, you know what they are. We talk about them all the time. There are people that are remote viewers, like my partner, Jennifer Falah, who was on my podcast earlier today. Guess what she got, Mel, today? She got a bunch of different stuff. She gets this thing where she tells us what's happening with the RV of the currencies and the financial shift. Today, she got what's coming in the news. And she usually gives us stuff like a capsized boat and train derailments. She got one word today, Mel, and you probably know what this means. Omni. What does omni mean to you, Mel? I think you know. If you don't know, I'll fill you in.
Fill me in, please. I don't know everything.
RLUSD and XRP are going to be on the Omni network. So we are going to be hearing, apparently, and Jen, when she says these things, it usually happens within 3 to 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. Omni is going to become really important, which means, George, that the financial shift is starting to happen. And today I got a report, and Mel, like you said, you know, I've heard this 9,999,000 times. The IQD is actually on the Forex now. It hasn't been on the Forex in like 20 years. Uh-huh. So even if it's on there at the tiny rate, the fraction of a penny rate, the fact that it's on there signals that we're about ready to go.
But also, we can back that up astrologically. Sorry, Mike, just interrupt you. It's so interesting because we all have this information from a different perspective because of our interests, our talents. Uranus is at the anaretic degree. That's 29 degrees Taurus. And that is a fulcrum. That's a powerful energy point of destroying the Earth old system. And the moment Uranus goes into Gemini, which is really where he's exalted, we are going to see that quantum system go online, and specifically in 2026, if not before. So I totally subscribe to that.
Yeah, I tend to think before, but you know, again, I'm optimistic. But the reality is here we've got these shifts happening, and then we have what you brought up, which is the Iran-Israel war. And what's happened is, you know, Trump stepped into it. We've decimated their nuclear facilities. They're not going to be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. The people behind all these changes, these financial changes that are going to send XRP to the moon, didn't want to go forward with this until Iran was dealt with. And then we're going to deal with Israel. I mean, and it just came up last week. You know, Trump talked about, I don't think Bibi Netanyahu should be tried for the crimes he committed that they're accusing him of in Israel. They may be true, they may not be true. I personally hear that they are true.
They are true.
Yeah, it's being set up that once Iran is dealt with, the government of Israel is next. I'm not talking about the people of Israel or the Hebrews' right to exist and live on that land, but I'm talking about the removal of the corrupt government that's been in charge there for probably basically since Israel was created. So that's on the plate now because Trump put it out there.
I'm also bringing it together. Let's be clear: the Khazarian base in ancient Persia, well, not ancient Persia, in modern day Iran, is large, and this is also a battle between different factions, whether it's Khazarians in Iran or Khazarians in Israel. And this also goes to back up Mike's point even more. This isn't about Jews per se. This isn't even about Israelis. What we've got to do is like the criminal syndicate from my country, and I'm sure Ron, Mike, and all of you have something to say about the City of London and the royal and the dark demonic of the British. At the end of the day, we've got to call out that dark demonic. It doesn't matter if it's British. It doesn't matter if it's Israeli. It doesn't matter if it's Persian. There's the freedom, right?
Right. And the thing is, though, the changes come. Let me just finish, Mel, real quick, and then I'll shut up for a while. Sure. The change is coming in Iran. The mullahs are going to be gone. They are not going to survive. That is one of the last bastions of the cabal, of the dark forces that have kept us in this prison for the last 2,000 years since they killed Jesus. And the reality is that that's all falling apart. And with that threat gone, like you say, that threat that was created by the American three-letter agencies, primarily CIA, if the Pahlavis come back and take over there and institute a new form of government, I mean, what's going to happen is peace is going to break out throughout the Middle East. There's going to be peace agreements. All these countries are going to recognize Israel's right to exist. And the war that they've been feeding off of, the energy, the negative death, black cult energy they've been feeding off since 1979 when they overthrew the Shah, is over. And I can see that happening in the next couple months at the latest.
Yeah. Well, this dog here, a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, this dog was more dead than alive. This dog had a massive stroke. And we put him inside Staying Alive, the healing center in Cape Canaveral that we own. Amber and I are so fortunate to own that place. It's a miracle place. And the dog does a full turnaround after 60 hours in the system. Plus, was doing 2 Terrify sessions in a day, one in the morning, one at night, and bounce back like as if the incident never happened. But, you know, I think we're going to do something real funny. We're going to start the show with something real funny every single Monday. So my ex-girlfriend, unfortunately, was spotted off of the coast of the Caribbean. So I got a shot of that.
Your ex-girlfriend.
Did you guys see that?
I saw.
She ate a couple. She ate a couple of too many turkeys.
She belongs in the water.
Whoa!
Always causing trouble, man.
People say AI has no practical uses. Come on.
I thought that was funny. What did you guys? Did you see that one yet? Or no?
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, I saw that a while ago. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Hey guys, as you come on, mention what part of the world you're in. Just, you know, state, country, county. If you're from Brevard County, Florida, come visit us at Staying Alive. You know, look, at the end of the day, we got a lot of stuff going on. As a matter of fact, I'm waiting right now for. Let me get rid of this thing. How do you get rid of this?
Mel, can I ask you, if somebody had a pet that was sick, or even themselves, how many treatments would they need to have in the electrical bed there and stuff, and how much would it cost in general?
Yeah, those are all great questions. Everybody's different, but everybody's made up of DNA. You know, some people drink, some people smoke, some people are healthy, some people are less healthy, some people are more healthy. It all depends. It's got a lot of variables. But my dog obviously doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, except for, you know, organic dog food and the best stuff on earth that you could possibly imagine. He went outside for a quick pee, came back, and he suffered a massive stroke. And so when we brought him in, I told Amber, because I was traveling, I was in Vegas, as a matter of fact, at the XRP convention. And I was getting ready to cut my trip short. And I said, leave him in the system for 20 hours a day, 3 days minimum. Do a Therify session after the first 2 hours, and do another session on the Therify plasma med bed and 2 hours before you leave the system. And we did that. And boom, he just literally started to bounce back. Because the body, whether it's a dog's body or a human body, we have a cellular structure. The cells have to be charged, just like the cells of a battery in your car, whether it's a Tesla or some other brand, that doesn't matter. It has to be charged. And this is basically a human charging station, if you will. These are not medical devices. They're not going to fix you. They're just going to allow your body to understand that frequency. And when it does, it charges your cellular being. And when your cells are, you know, literally optimized at 90 millivolts, disease cannot set in. So if there's something wrong with you, it will actually go and repair it. Why? Because the best doctor in the world lives inside you, right? So, but anyway, yeah, that's how that works. And, you know, look, if people knew what we have and people understood it to the level that I understand it, even though we're not allowed to say it cures anything, because it doesn't really cure anything. It's not a medical device. It's an actual frequency machine. And it's your body that understands the frequency. Yes, have people got rid of that thing that starts with a C and ends with an R, stage 3, stage 4? Yes, yes, and yes. How many times? Multiple times. If you want to take all of the centers that have the same identical technology worldwide, I would say it's probably thousands of times. Okay.
Mel, can I just jump in here on the frequency? Because I've been doing sound healing for over 12, 15 years, and it's so interesting. If you look at the word logos, really, yes, people interpret it as word, but really what it is, it's frequency, and it's actually sound. And when you apply sound frequency, it's like future proves past. How did those pyramids were made? Through the elevation of sound, and you can lift things and suspend things in 3D using the correct sound. Obviously, Rife was trying to do this, and he got shut down. And of course, Tesla was playing with this, and he got shut down. And now what's happening is we're basically reconnecting to these Atlantean technologies. I mean, only the other day in what was it called, in Göbekli Tepe, which really was built antediluvian, pre the Great Flood, they've discovered a sculpture of the zodiac with a Scorpio pillar on one side and 180 degrees opposite, Taurus on the other. What does that tell us? It tells us the zodiac sign goes back to Atlantis and before. And I've been banging on about this for years, but now here is the proof, is we are rediscovering that our civilization is way, way older. And of course, all of us on this platform know that. And many of your listeners, all of your listeners know it, but Tom, Dick, and Sally still don't. And this is what's exciting.
Tell the audience what you do, George, and how they could find you, because he does readings and astrological readings. You do tarot cards as well, I believe.
Yeah, I really use many different esoteric. I describe myself, I'm in the healing arts. I'm a professional astrologer, tarot reader, intuitive, but I will use many different modalities to really get to the soul contract. I am very fascinated with discovering what is your soul contract, and it's all written in the zodiac language. So when you see your birth chart, which is the moment you came out and you had your first breath in the 3D, that tells us something. And so I do the readings, I do sound therapy, either online or in person. I use many different types of healing modalities, like I use crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, tuning forks I've had made for myself, which have crystals on them. And I can sort of work through the biofield and see where the disease is in the body, whether it's manifesting physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. Those are the four elements, of course. And so we can heal everything through sound and frequency.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm absolutely addicted to sound bowls and sound healing. We do them inside our system. So we have 24-unit system. And when you combine the actual vibration and the frequency that we have going on with sound healing and the gongs and the bowls and all the symbols that you guys use, it's fascinating, because you could feel the energy just literally go through you. It's no denying that something's taking place. This is why they got rid of all the bells 100%. In the churches around.
They're coming back, and I'm building healing temples with new church bells as we speak, and that's very exciting. We're going to be bringing back this technology. I mean, everyone's going to do it. You know, the New Republic, the New Earth is everyone, whether it's me here in Maine or in Florida and Johnny in Minnesota, we're going to have lots of small spaces all over the globe for people to come for healing and for sort of moving out of the trauma.
So how can people find you for your services? I know you do private readings, etc. You do group readings, etc.
I mean, the best way probably is either through my website, georgehlewis.com, or email me, georgehlewis@me.com, or my Instagram, George H. Lewis. It's always George H. Lewis. You can sort of find me there.
Great. So before you leave, make sure you give yourself another plug. Let's get on with the show.
Can we say hi to Ron? Can we say hi to Ron? Ron hasn't gotten a chance to say anything yet, because we're all just talking. Ron, how are you? Tell everybody.
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm out in sunny Southern California, so trying to behind enemy lines, actually. So, hey, I can't abandon my mom. You know, she's 84 by herself, so I just can't, in good conscience, leave her here to endure what's coming by herself. So, anyway. That said, my expertise is probably going to be much more on the geopolitical side than on the esoterical stuff. So, but I find a lot of the stuff that you guys talk about fascinating.
Yes. Well, thank you, Ron, for making that 45-second piece for the documentary that is long awaited. And I'll tell you, I'm in anticipation because I am about to watch it for the first time. Hopefully it gets delivered to me while we're doing the show from my editing staff, and we're going to go ahead and play it for the audience. But right now, let's play this short 2-minute and 32-second video, XRP ISO 20022. I think this is a fascinating video. Pay attention. No volume.
Last night that this will be a single. Federal Reserve literally posted on their website last night that this will be a single day Big Bang migration. Let's break it down on this episode of Crypto News in a Flash. We know that the ISO 222 has been pushed back. What's that mean, and what are the details? With a new deadline of July 14th, when before it was March 10th. That means it got pushed back 4 months. The Federal Reserve announced that it has a go, no-go date set for June 27th. This means that this is the final date for them to determine market readiness for adoption. If they determine that too many banks are still behind on implementations by this date, they can delay the ISO 2022 adoption once again, calling it a no-go. But if they determine on June 27th that everything is in place and ready, they would call it a go on that same day. And then July 14th, all systems will go live on the same day. Because like I said in the beginning, this will be a big bang migration. And if you read at the end, it also says that they will not be providing translation services. This means they will not be using or providing support for the old system on that date. Once the new ISO 2022 goes live, the old MT language will not be supported at all on the Fedwire system. So July 14th is a hard deadline. But there was supposed to be a deadline for using the legacy systems, and that was supposed to end in November. Correct. But that date is for Swift's CBPR Plus, which is their cross-border payments and reporting plus system. As of right now, that date is still set for November. They haven't pushed it back. So domestic banks using the Fedwire system have a hard deadline for the ISO 2022 on July 14th. International banks worldwide using Swift's cross-border payments have until November 22nd. Additionally, Swift's annual general meeting is scheduled for the second Thursday of June each year, which will be June 12th of 2025 this year. They could decide on that date to extend the deadline 4 months, like the Fedwire did, but I could not find anything on Swift's website about a go, no-go date. So November 22nd could just be the hard stop date. So to summarize, ISO changed from March 10th to July 14th. The Federal Reserve's ISO go, no-go date is June 27th. Swift's meeting is June 12th, and Swift's CBPR plus ISO 2022 deadline is November 22nd. November 22nd could be a really good day for XRP because we know it uses Swift's through EastNet's payment safe system. And when this new system goes live, I'm pretty sure things could look pretty bullish. Wealth, love, and authenticity to you all.
How much longer do you think they can really kick the can down the road, guys? Seriously.
With XRP?
Yeah.
Until it's ready, man. And, I mean, you're asking, I think that's the wrong question to ask. I think the right question to ask is, when are they going to flip the switch? I don't know when that's going to be. The more I look at it now, the more I think that when Clayton went out the door, that he literally put the kibosh on XRP at that moment in time, specifically because they weren't ready yet. And now I think they're with each passing day, it gets to be more and more. We're closer and closer to being ready, but we're still not there yet.
I also think Iran plays a part in this too, because what we're freeing up a major, power play. I mean, Iran has been very kept down since 79. I mean, if you go back to the history, the Persian Empire was always a major player in the global conversation. So I think what has to happen, a lot of these countries have to get ready to go online before XRP can be rolled out as a digital asset, right? Would you say that would be true, Ron?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of that work has already been done behind the scenes, though. I think that we're not going to realize it, but when they do flip the switch, all that stuff will have already transpired. I mean, just because Jay Clayton launched the SEC after XRP and Ripple, that didn't stop them from working internationally. In fact, they had actually hyper-focused them on focusing on the international market because the U.S. market was in limbo, but I believe it was a staged limbo.
Hey guys, don't forget we just launched a new channel. I believe it's called Mel Carmine Show, and there's the link right there. You guys can go and subscribe right now. Unfortunately, even though I contacted Rumble and I said, hey, why don't you guys invent some software where we can take and migrate all of the people who are following us on our regular subscription over to our channel, they don't have that. So, you know, in many cases, I believe Rumble is still backwards. Unfortunately, it is what it is. So,
well, you can't do that. You know, you can't do that on YouTube either. I got 3 different YouTube channels. I'd like to just get all my subscribers on one. And it's like, it should be a piece of cake to do that. And it's just not there. So,
yeah, I mean, the programmers could probably design that in a weekend. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, Mel, is the reason so many of us have multiple YouTube channels is because we keep getting banned, you know, over the last 5-7 years. So, you know, it would be a nice thing for them to do. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's go right down the line here. Let me get another one queued up.
I wondered, could Ron speak to the XLM? Because I'm curious. For me, XLM is like almost like a sister to XRP.
So I think, so as I understand it, and this is just my understanding of it, is that XRP is going to be used for like major financial institutions, large transfers, whereas XLM will be much more of a kind of a consumer application where it's going to be like everyday you know, transactions where you go to the grocery store and stuff like that. Whereas XRP, you're not necessarily going to be using that for those types of transactions. XRP would be something like, let's just say, theoretically speaking, that let's say that we bought the United States bought X amount of steel or iron ore from China. All right, well, so somebody sends a bunch of money over there for that deal. That goes in XRP. If you're going down to the grocery store and you're buying some, you know, some steaks or whatever, that transaction will be done through XLM because
so it's like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash or something, or the XRP is going to be between big governments and corporations, and
that's how I understand it. Now that doesn't mean that's what it's going
to. Do we need a bit of both then? Is it
I think you'd be foolish not to have both.
Because astrologically, from a cosmological perspective, for 7 years now, I've believed that XRP and XLM are like the brother and sister. One is gold backed, one is silver backed. It's the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, and then you have the harmony you see between the two.
Well, I don't know if they're going to be gold backed. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to have currencies that are going to be gold backed, and they're going to be used on the XRP rails. So XRP itself will be gold backed by virtue of the currencies that it's used that are using its rails are gold backed.
I see. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep. Well, let's play this one here, and then we can comment on this one as well. Thanks.
So let me get to the derivatives, because that's where the things get juicy. Okay. And I think this is Ripple's ultimate goal for what they're building. They have a product called Codius that's been in, you know, beta for a long time, but it's a smart contract derivatives platform. And so all of these structured derivatives products, right now you can't even quantify derivatives. People don't even know their risk. That's why Lehman and all those people failed in 2008, is they had all these, you know, mortgage-backed securities that they had packaged up and sold and taken leverage on and done a bunch of stuff with, which is gambling, but they do it because they make a bunch of money. They can't even quantify their risk, and nobody can tell you how much the derivatives market's worth. It's somewhere between 400 trillion and like $4 quadrillion. And if you had an accounting mechanism that could be used to identify all the risk across that and issue all these derivatives, because they're complex, you need some smart contracts that are really complex to be able to do this. And that was on the XRPL, and XRP settles those. Now we're talking like $10,000 to $50,000 in XRP.
That is none other than Jake Claver. I don't think he needs any introduction. I'm sure you guys know who he is. If you've been to the XRP convention, he's there at every one. He manages over $300 million in crypto assets. He's doing very, very well. And, you know, look, he's playing a game that's more tailored to the big fat cat. It's not cheap to go play with him, obviously, but at some point, maybe those price points will come down and it'll be affordable for the masses. But his company's doing very, very well because he's doing custodialship, I understand, for some of the big names like, you know, corporations that have a lot of money to play with. So, any comments on a $20,000 to $50,000 XRP, Mike?
Well, I hear that when XRP gets to a certain level, the government is going to declare it an asset, like not an eminent domain kind of thing, but an asset like the utility networks or the 5G networks and that kind of thing. And that I've heard two numbers on what that cap is. One is 100,000 and the other one is 1 million. So if XRP gets to 100,000, the government is supposedly going to buy it from you at that rate. So my advice on XRP, XLM is just hodl until they start going to the moon. So that's what I hear about it. And so the cap, I think the minimum cap is 100,000, but they're going to declare Bitcoin and XRP and other assets like that to be government assets that have to be protected and controlled. So fine with me. You want to give me 100,000 for my XRP a piece? Okay, I'm there.
George, George, would you feel like pulling some cards? Do you have any cards there handy? Would you want to pull some cards on that 20 to 50,000? That would be interesting. Your microphone is muted.
I would love to do that for you next time. I haven't got my cards with me right now as I speak.
Okay.
But next week I can definitely pull some cards. Yeah. But I also could look. I mean, if we're looking at actual timings from a perspective of XRP, I've got the chart right in front of me. And what we're looking at, I mean, I don't know whether I can share it with you in the screen, is you look at things like Venus to do with money. And Venus is in Taurus, and it's going to literally, it's just going over Jupiter, the natal Jupiter. There's a good indication of some expansion coming in right now. Certainly it's a good time to invest in XRP. I personally, this is intuitively speaking, I believe XRP is actually being kept at around this point for more and more people who are awake to actually get in before it gets too expensive. I think the whole plan is to try and get as many people in on it before it is too expensive. I mean, I have a lot of faith in this, that actually the people for the first time in collective memory are being supported in their growth. We've lived in a very criminal world, really, for the age of Pisces for thousands of years. And that is coming to an end. It's going to take a long time for us to process that trauma, process and heal out of that trauma. And that's why, in a way, the spiritual component is very interesting. I love what Ron does, because actually I'm fascinated by geopolitics. I mean, my degree actually was politics and philosophy. And at the end of the day, in the new earth, which we're all about, we're going to be combining the exoteric with the esoteric, the metaphysical with the physical, because that's what to be human is, the art of science and the science of art. It's this left brain, right brain. It's the masculine and feminine. It's all about truth and consciousness at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to put this link inside here, because I'm afraid that if I play that link that I'm posting in here right now, that we would get shut down like that. We're talking about some meds that have some kind of technology built in, and they move. So I can't say much more than that. But if you like to click on that and spread that around, it deserves some notoriety. Any comments on that, Ron?
Which part? Because there was several
XRP.
things. XRP going to a very high value, and then it potentially being purchased back. I'm not in that camp. I do believe it's going to go high. I don't believe that Bitcoin is going to be the. I think Bitcoin will survive, but if you look at every financial institution out there, no financial institution will ever they're not going to put an astronomical amount of money into something that they don't know where it came from. Every financial instrument in the world right now, except Bitcoin, has a point of origin. Bitcoin is the only one that has no point I mean, it has a point of origin, but nobody knows what its origins are.
Right.
There are, and let me say that there are people who do know its origins, but very likely the banks they probably do, in all things being equal. But I think that we are, when you look at the Federal Reserve and how the Federal Reserve is going to have to be taken down, And I know we've had this discussion in the past. I'm not a big Nassara Jassara guy, but I do believe that there's a lot of things that are going to transpire that are going to mimic the Nassara Jassara thoughts in terms like if the Federal Reserve goes away, then now we are no longer using a debt instrument as currency, and we're going to go back to a dollar that is actually backed by gold. There's a good possibility that there are certain debts that will be wiped away. But if a bank owns a loan on a house where there's property, where there's collateral, and that bank is still in business or it got bought out by somebody else, then I believe that I don't necessarily know that mortgages are going to go away, but I do think that things like credit card debt, student loan debt, a lot of these things that have been used to prop up the system and keep this thing going within a bubble, I think a lot of those things are going to be forgiven. But with the point I was making about the Federal Reserve, I still feel that Tether is going to experience something like that as well, because I think Tether is the Federal Reserve of the crypto market. And every time that there's every time I've seen an increase in the Tether supply, there's been a corresponding increase in the Bitcoin price. So what I tend to think that that if Tether, I don't think Tether has the reserves on hand to cover it. I think it's a FTX on steroids, if you will. And if that gets called, you could see Bitcoin crash.
Yeah, look, doesn't matter whether you call it Nassara Jassara or DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, Department of Jassara, whatever you call it. I mean, right now, DOGE you can't even argue with it. It's got every characteristic of a Nassara Jassara. The tariffs are in this country was the richest country in the world when we were running on tariffs, and no income tax, no property tax, no capital gains tax, no bullshit, right? And now Trump understands that formula better than anybody. He's getting rid of HOAs. He's getting rid of property tax. He's getting rid of.
Did he say he was getting rid of HOAs?
Yes.
When did he say that?
It's all over the news here on YouTube in Florida. This is like HOA capital of the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, HOAs are just my favorite scene in any TV or movie or anything about HOAs was in Tulsa King, in episode 2 of season 2 of episode 2, when the dude realizes that Sylvester Stallone was the mobster, and he's been harassing the shit out of him for parking his car here or doing that there, and he it's okay, you don't have to worry about that anymore. But I despise HOAs. I think they're essentially just tiny little communistic totalitarian rule by neighbors, and it gives a tiny little guppy to make them feel like they're the biggest fish in this tiny little pond.
High school 2.0 condo commandos. Believe me, I know it all too well.
Amen.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go on to Donald Trump. There's a new T-Mobile in town. It's called Trump Mobile. I love it.
So on the 10-year anniversary of Trump coming down those golden escalators, he announces today, Eric Trump announces that they have come out with Trump Mobile. Trump Mobile will be releasing soon. And I've been wondering how long before we get the information about how corrupt these phone services are, AT&T, Verizon. This is awesome. This is going to be epic. And the best thing about it is these phones and everything, the service, all of it is made in America. He said that St. Louis will be the hub for all the customer service for it. So, man, everything's coming back to America. It's going to be a big week. Be prepared. I have a feeling the mother of all bombs might come out this week, and with what's going on in Israel and Iran. But this right here, this is huge. This will definitely drive a few liberals and Democrats absolutely crazy.
Now, think about this for a second. I mean, how brilliant can one man be? you look at the phone industry, the cell phone industry, for example, right? And you realize that this industry tracks you, it listens to you, right? It knows everything you're going to buy. It knows you better than you know yourself. And he said, well, if we create a phone system or a phone company that does the opposite of that, where we don't track you, we don't listen to you, we don't watch you every minute of every day, unless we have to, unless there's some criminal stuff going on, whatever, and they have a reason to. Obviously, I'm sure they have the option to do that. But to listen to somebody 24 hours a day who's a law-abiding citizen, it is a nuisance, to say the least. Okay? So he said, if we do the opposite of that, this vacuum is going to appear, and someone's going to suck all the juice out of that vacuum, right? And that's going to be the Trumps. Yeah, they're probably going to make a couple of $1 trillion. What do you know? Why did they get into cryptos? Because there's no money in it? It's a scam? I don't think so. I mean, we own some of that Liberty Mutual stuff. I don't know if you know about that Trump Liberty token. You have to be an accredited investor. Did you get some of that?
I got some of that. You were the one that told me about it. I bought some.
Yes. Yeah, Liberty Mutual is going to be a big deal. Amber bought, instead of buying ourselves boxes of chocolates for birthdays and Valentine's Day, we buy ourselves crypto now. Amber and I, what a smart move that is, right? And it doesn't give you a tooth decay either.
That's hilarious.
I also don't believe Trump is actually benefiting personally from this. I think he's totally uninterested in it. I mean, if he really was motivated by money, he would never run for office. He would have stayed a civilian. I mean, to me, he is dedicated. And again, back to the astrology, you can't make it up. His astrology.
He's dedicated to his kids, George.
Yes, but he's dedicated profoundly to the United States. And the proof's in the pudding. If you look at the interviews from the 1980s, he's been obsessed with America and his natal chart. His Venus is right over the birth chart of the United States. I know many of you don't know the language of astrology, but when you see someone's Venus, what you love is over the birth sign of the birth chart of the United States, the sun sign in Cancer. It's just very clear as crystal that this man is driven from a soul contract perspective to actually reignite the American Republic, which was taken out basically from 1871 right through to the present until 20.
I'd like to touch upon that if I can.
Sure.
So if you go back and you analyze Trump, I think he was selected by military.
Yes, he was.
A long time ago, not just like in 2010, 2012. No. I think it was much earlier than that, because he had correspondence with Nixon. Nixon had been couped, essentially. Yep. He got couped out of office with Watergate. Kennedy obviously was assassinated. Yes. He's very good friends with Kennedy's son.
Yeah. And John Trump, John Trump's relationship with Tesla.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's way too many intersecting vectors there that lead me to believe that he was definitely somebody on the list from a long time ago. That said, I'm looking from a geopolitical standpoint. I see so many things aligning right now, and it's exciting. Actually, it's really exciting. I mean, there's not a more exciting time to ever be alive than right now. Watching, the period of history that we're about to go through is going to be talked about for centuries, if not millennia. And we get to watch it real time.
Absolutely.
Which kind of gives me goosebumps to think about.
Mike, you want to add anything to that?
No, other than I've been saying this for 15 years, and I'm just glad to see it's finally happened. I mean, we all thought it was going to start happening in 2017 when Trump took office. The reality is, though, guys, we haven't seen Donald Trump do anything truly asymmetrical yet. In other words, say, look, these judges are corrupt. They've arrested a few when they committed obvious crimes, but these judges are corrupt. Here's the proof 2020 was stolen. I'm now going to ask the Supreme Court for the right to run for another term. Let's do some stuff to shake things up. Everything we see remains conventional politics. So while I'm optimistic and I predicted that we were going to go through this period I haven't seen it yet. And I'm waiting for something extraordinary like cryptos, XRP to take off, the RV to happen, something, some implementation of Nasara Jasara at some level to really push this thing through. I mean, I was hopeful for the big, beautiful bill, but, you know, rather than no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, we've got tax breaks for those things. And that's just not good enough. So to my mind, the process is moving too slowly. It's moving way too slowly. And, you know, at least arrest James fucking Comey.
I think the big, beautiful bill is not so much about tax breaks than it is about making sure that the government is going to be funded for the next year. Because I have an idea that we're going to see some very interesting things happen this July. I mean, we don't have much time left, in my opinion, and we have this. What now? You know, I can't say what or how I've heard this, but I've heard that we are looking at it is absolutely going to happen in 2025. I'm hearing summer. I've heard from multiple sources that we're looking at sometime early July. And I think that's one of the primary reasons why they're trying to get this bill passed as quickly as possible. I'm not.
Can I talk to July a little bit astrologically?
Go ahead.
Sure.
It's so interesting that Ron says July because Jupiter has just moved into Cancer, and the United States has a very unusual birth chart. It has both benefics, Jupiter and Venus, conjunct the Sun in Cancer, and Jupiter, for the first time in 12 years, has moved into Cancer, and it's activating the United States birth chart. And for me, that's also interesting because as the United States moves into that, it's leading the world in this revolution. It will then allow that to be spread globally. And it's also making a square to Saturn. And that's challenging, again, that old Saturn system. If you like, the Swift system is going to be dislodged more likely in July onwards. I do concur with that, Ron, from an astrological perspective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And, you know, some of the things, and I'm not saying this to scare the hell out of anybody, but I'll just tell you just a couple of things that I've heard is that there could be just an inordinate amount of sleeper cells activated all at the same time.
Yep.
Where they're driving through residential areas, just shooting everything up, lobbing Molotovs, lobbing RPGs. You know, we all saw the story of the van in Colorado that got pulled over with 180,000 rounds of .308, or 150,000 rounds of .308 and 30,000 rounds of 7.62 by 39. And if you have any idea about weapons, you know that a .308 is going to be for that's not a combat round that's going to be into that's going to be in a platform that you're carrying. That's probably going to be much more of a belt-fed weapon. So belt-fed weapons will be on vehicles. The 7.62 by 39 is 30,000 rounds of that. It will be for AK-47s.
You really think it would come to that, Ron, in the United States of America? Really? I mean, there's a lot of cops out there that got itchy trigger fingers.
Well, okay, so all right. I have no evidence of this. This is just. I do have evidence that we have at minimum 35 terrorist training camps within the borders of the continental United States. That's like 8 or 10 years old, and that's just confirmed camps. All right. Now, and all that stuff is funded by intelligence because the intelligence agencies are conducting a color revolution on U.S. soil right now. Why do you think the American forces had their hands tied in terms of ROE on the battlefield in all over the Middle East?
What is ROE?
Rules of engagement.
Thank you.
So in other words, in rules of engagement, you have to be fired at before you can fire back. All right. If you see somebody, if it's in a wartime situation, it's weapons free, and you see somebody that's the enemy, then you can shoot them. If if your ROE say that you have to be engaged before you can engage, then you have to wait for them to shoot at you first, and then you can respond. Well,
That's if you're still alive.
right. Well, Obama during the Obama administration, he changed the ROE to almost like they couldn't fire unless they were like within 25 feet or something. I mean, I'm
ridiculous.
That wasn't what it was, but it was. Somebody in the audience will have been in the infantry or in on the ground and know what the ROE was, but it was something. It was almost as ridiculous as that. It's and my belief is that a lot of the people that have been imported here are battlefield. They're guys that have actually been on the battlefield that fought for ISIS or for Al Qaeda overseas, and they've come here now. They got that was kind of like their training, and now they're going to come here and they're going to be unleashed. They may get a little bit, but I don't think they're going to get too far because their supply lines are going to be depleted. So not only that, but once you wake that sleeping giant, which is the American conservative, that bear ain't going back into hibernation.
They may go into states like California, New York, New Jersey, Washington State, which is very liberal. They know that people up there are not allowed to defend themselves and not allowed to have any guns, etc. Obviously, some people do, regardless of the law. And kudos to you people that do. But for example, the street I live on, which is an island, there's only one street in and one street out. I don't think you can even move here unless you have a minimum of 17 guns.
So let me tell you,
that would be like a suicide mission.
This is okay. This is what I've heard in terms of geography speaking. Mm-hmm. Everything west of the Mississippi and north of I-40 is in danger. Everything south of I-40 and east of the Mississippi, it's not that they're completely out of danger, but they're in a lot. That's the safest zone in the United States.
So if you're in Florida, you're in a safe zone.
You're probably the safest.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I tell you, there's a lot of this is Trump country. First of all, you'll drive down the street here, and when Biden was the president, there was signs on the wall on the grass saying "Not my president" with a big red circle and line through it. That was very common around here. This is definitely Trump country, and there's a lot of cowboys around here that this is part of.
Well, you have a large amount of Cuban population down there, yes?
Not so much here in Brevard County. That's mostly down in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area.
Miami area. Okay. Well, okay. So why is it then that Miami-Dade is so blue when they, vast majority of them are actually they fled Cuba? I don't understand that. That doesn't add up to me.
Yeah.
It's called voter fraud. It's called massive voter fraud.
Okay.
And I mean you can't the Democrats get on a regular basis, at least the last 10 or 12 years, in my opinion, probably at least 30% less of the vote than they are given credit for. It's just not there. So it's voter fraud and illegal aliens, which is
be careful fraud. With that word, please.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a big no-no on YouTube. Okay. He didn't mean that, YouTube. Okay, so
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry.
There was no fraud. What are you talking about, Mike?
Sorry.
Definitely definitely shenanigans that are worthy of investigation.
There you go.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, guys, before we go any further, I got to make a couple of announcements. QFS1776.com. We got great merch. Shop with the good guys, and you can get to learn about the quantum financial system completely free of charge. It is the holy grail of what's to come. You got videos that we went out and scouted the most elementary videos. We put them together in a chronological order. Even a 75-year-old grandmother could watch those videos top to bottom. And by the time you get down to the bottom, congratulations, you got a black belt on the quantum financial system. Also, we need some volunteers. We need volunteers that can find us movie theaters so that we can screen the movie Dear Mr. President maybe 3-4 days before we go live on the internet worldwide. The movie, with a little bit of good luck, should be launched totally on the internet by August 17th, which is a Sunday. and I believe we're going to be English, Italian, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese for starters, and then we're adding probably another 6 or 7 languages to that. So it's going to go worldwide. It is coming out like a Picasso. It's a work of art. It really is. I know that Maureen, who's here listening from Costa Rica, who's one of our co-producers, and Elisa Valentino, who's backstage, who's doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much. They are baffled at the level of perfection that our editing staff has put together. It's really going to be. Look, if this thing doesn't grow legs, I will eat my shorts on live television. That's how sure I am. So let's watch this video, and then we'll comment on it. This is something to do with food, all right?
Somebody to explain to me why I can eat bread in Spain and in Greece, Italy, no problem. Why I was gluten free in 15 years. I've been gluten free in Canada, America. Can't eat it.
That's because in America, what we call bread can't even be considered food in parts of Europe. See, here in America, it's not so much the gluten as what we've done to the grain. About 200 years ago, we started stripping the bran and germ, or the fiber and nutrients, to make flour shelf stable, also nutritionally dead. Because the nutrients were gone, we enriched it with folic acid, which a large majority of the population can't even metabolize. Therefore, many people experience fatigue, anxiety, hyperactivity, and inflammation. But then the bread wasn't white enough, so they bleached it with chlorine gas, and the bread didn't rise enough, so they added a carcinogen called potassium bromate, which is banned in several countries like Europe, the UK, and even China. Then we wanted to ramp up production, so we started using glyphosate to dry out the wheat before harvest, causing endocrine disruption and damaging your gut. So now you're bloated, brain fogged, tired, and blame gluten, but gluten is just the scapegoat. The real issue is ultra-processed, chemically altered, bleached, bromated, fake vitamin-filled wheat soaked in glyphosate. This isn't bread. This is.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, we're not even allowed to have real bread. Do you think that it has maybe something to do with the sick care model? Is there like a conspiracy, Ron, that they need to keep?
Yeah, that's I mean, yeah, 100%. That's he just is like, I'm looking and I'm listening to him and I'm thinking Flexner report, you know. So I mean, do you do you know what the Flexner report was?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, so you know, there's 2 sets of brothers that probably have had the most significant impact on human society in the 20th century and 21st century. One would be the Wright brothers, because they invented airplanes, and the other would be the Flexner brothers, because they are the ones that, at the behest of the Rockefellers, essentially organized medical schools and gave them certificates to teach what they wanted to teach, and go on to this the kind of what was the where they use the petroleum-based medicine as opposed to natural-based medicine. And meanwhile, you know, because at the time that the Flexner report came out, there was a flourishing doctors of osteopathy. You had all the alternative health stuff was flourishing. You know, you guys talked about Rife earlier. There was a lot of things out there that were coming about, and they're like, no, we can't do that. I was shocked to hear that about glyphosate. I did not know that, but that makes so much sense. And for those of you who don't know what glyphosate is, think Agent Orange.
Exactly.
I mean, the United States has deliberately, I mean, I speak as a European, you know, I went to school with Windsor on my left and Rothschild on my right. I mean, I say that because at the end of the day, I understand what the agenda's been against the United States, because you can't have global new world order with the United States flourishing with her constitution. You have
That's
to
exactly right.
And the United States has been deliberately, systematically targeted. I mean, this arbitrarily, since way before the Second World War, but really cleverly since the Second World War, which was a major reset. Everyone on this channel knows that better than anyone else. And at the end of the day, as you say, Ron, it really has been a deliberate takedown. This isn't just by coincidence or accident. I mean, glyphosate is part of destruction of the pineal gland. When you take human beings away from nature, this is why the healing's so important. You know, we have to take away the glyphosate, the fluoride, the chlorine, and the 5G, because that's what kills the pineal gland, those 4 ingredients. And we're going to spend the next decade doing detox. The population has to detoxify more than anything else. And it's psychic detoxification, just physical.
It's all kinds of detoxifications. You got to detoxify your mind of this freaking Marxist communist mind virus that they've been pumping into their heads as well. So, but to your point, yes, it's we are going to have to detox. And my father was a pharmacist. There was there are a lot of medical conditions out there, including cholesterol. Everybody thinks that cholesterol. You go to the doctor and
great.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the whole high cholesterol thing is all bullshit. That is, go read Dr. Sinatra's book on the myth about cholesterol, and really what he talks about in there is it's not cholesterol, it's not fat, it's sugar, it's the sugar content. And in the United States, they literally pay people, they pay farmers not to produce things. And they pay them to produce things like corn, but it's not really corn. It's that Monsanto GMO corn that's used for high fructose corn syrup, and that stuff is not. It's not. I mean that is absolute poison, and it really struck me when a good friend of mine that I'd gone to school with said that he moved down to Colombia, and he's like, dude, it's crazy down here. All the poor people are thin and all the rich people are fat. He's like, and the reason for that is because the poor people, they have to live off the land. They have to live off of, meats and vegetables and whatnot, things that, grow where they have to actually, do what they have to do to survive. Whereas the people who are rich, they can afford processed foods, but the processed foods there, they may not be as bad as the processed foods here. But if you go down to, your local Walmart or whatever, and you look into the grocery aisles where the mothers are walking around with their food stamp cards in their pocket. I mean, what's in their basket? Ramen, cereal, milk, cheese. I mean, all the stuff that's just absolutely heinous for human development. And causing people just to have inflammation and sickness and obesity. So to your point about targeting the United States because of the Constitution, it's on such a huge multifaceted level. I don't think people can truly comprehend how monstrous it is. And I wanted let me finish because I wanted to go back to something that you had talked about World War II. People have a gross misunderstanding of both World War I and World War II. World War I and World War II were ultimately designed and they were fomented for the purposes of instituting world government. What happened after World War II? What did you get? You got the United Nations. You got the European Union. You got NATO. You got all these intelligence agencies that are basically MI6 is British. CIA is American, KG or GRU is Russian, Mossad is Israeli. Okay, yeah, they fly those flags and pretending that they're part of that country, but at the extreme high levels of all those organizations, they all play for the same team. They just appear as though they're different in different countries, but they all play for the same team, and it's Team Globalist. So anyway, I just wanted to make the point that we have to have a really true understanding, and I get a lot of flack for saying this, but when you look at 1930s Germany, what was going on in the East? What was going on in Russia at that point? I mean, you had the Holodomor, they had the Red Terror. You had all these things that were going on. Shoot, Stalin killed more people but by democide before World War II ever broke out than the Germans ever were purported to have killed.
No, Ron, you're onto something. And I mean, this is something, okay, from an astrological perspective, Pluto and Aquarius, we're going to have to really get to redo our history. Actually, as a Brit, I'll say it like this. I'm not going to go into it on this chapter. Maybe Ron and I, and of course, this is a Mike's wheelhouse as well. We can get into this on another session, is the inversion of the Second World War. Winston Churchill, the great demonic, and Adolf Hitler, slightly different to what we've been told. And again, these are questions that we've got to start to understand. I don't know the answers. I don't sit here and pretend to know, but we haven't been told the truth. And this is a really, really hot potato, this one. People don't want to go there because it's probably the biggest, the most difficult red pill of all. Is
how much time do we have?
Oh, we're going to go for another 20 minutes. I'm waiting for.
Will you? Because I'm working on my new Substack article on what I'd like to do, if you'd permit me, is let me read this first section to you.
Sure.
All right. Imagine that this happened to the United States. The year is 2011. America has just emerged from a brutal war with Canada and Mexico, who were assisted by Russia, China, and England. It believes itself victorious, its cities untouched, its armies undefeated, but behind closed doors, the international powers coordinated to declare otherwise. By treaty, the United States is forced to surrender huge portions of its own southwestern homeland, California, Arizona, and New Mexico, to a new internationally recognized territory called Nuevo Mexico, formed at the insistence of the global institutions, with the United Nations leading the charge. Millions of English-speaking Americans, families who've lived there for generations, suddenly find themselves foreigners in their own land. They speak English, fly the stars and stripes, go to church, honor their veterans. But now, under a foreign regime backed by Washington's rivals, their newspapers are shuttered, their language is outlawed, their schools are closed, and their monuments are torn down. And then the nightmare worsens. The international community doesn't send peacekeepers to the new buffer state. Instead, they turn a blind eye to cartel militias. Those aren't rogue criminals. It's the regime's new enforcers, actually permitted and actually encouraged to keep order by any means. They raid homes, behead community leaders, abduct women, rape them in public, burn churches. American families cower as the rule of law collapses. Videos of atrocities leak online, but the media quickly buries them. The United Nations says nothing. Brussels looks away. The year is now 2024, and in Washington, newly elected President Trump makes every attempt to enter into dialogue with Nuevo Mexico. He sends envoys, he proposes referendums, offers non-aggression treaties, pledges to respect the new borders, and to request to let the people vote for self-determination. Every proposal is refused. Global powers, mostly in the European Union and along with Canada and the UK, encourage the Nuevo Mexico's regime to stand firm. They pledge absolute military protection in defense of them, which only emboldens Nuevo Mexico to increase the violence against American civilians. And then one Sunday morning in 2025, it happens in Phoenix. Hundreds of Americans, mothers, children, elderly, are massacred in what the regime calls a security sweep. Machetes, rifle butts to the face, axes, fires are set to houses with people in them, locked inside with no ability to escape. People are dragged out of their homes, lynched, beheaded, chopped into pieces in front of their families. It's barbaric. The world shrugs. The media calls it a clash. No one came to help. So Trump acts. Finally, reluctantly, he sends troops to protect the people still in American by birth and citizenship. And what are the headlines erupted as? U.S. invades sparks global crisis. America breaks peace with cross-border aggression. No mention of the broken families, no mention of the tortured civilians, no mention of the countless peace officers that were rejected. Only one story is told. America attacked. And so America becomes the villain. And that sounds horrible, I know. Thank God it's a fictional story. Or is it?
But this
didn't happen in 2025. It happened in 1939.
Yeah.
But the country wasn't the United States. It was Germany.
And this is why this time round, it has to be The Smoke and Mirrors of the Art of War by Sun Tzu. It has to be very cleverly done. And I think we on this platform understand that. And of course, we're all learning. But the Second World War is really a toughie. I mean, I speak this. I'm heavily programmed British, grew up in England. And, you know, the fact that I can even begin to question Winston Churchill is sacrilegious to a lot of people.
Yes.
But, you know, from a point of view of health, spiritual health, we've just got to release the ego here, all of us, and not define ourselves by our fixed belief system.
World War II, guys, was a war between two different factions that splintered off from the Knights Templar in 1307. One is the Scottish Rite Freemasons in the, you know, Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, and the Teutonic Knights, which were, you know, again, traced their lineage back to Frederick Barbarossa. And that's why Operation Barbarossa was what Hitler named his invasion. He believed, you know, that he was a member of a secret society. He thought he was a member, you know, that the German people were the Teutonic Knights would rise again. And that's who this war was against. And meanwhile, the bankers are in between making money off both of them. I mean, the engines in the German trucks and tanks were pretty much designed by Ford Motor Company and put into the. So we have all this stuff. We have all this history, but people are not ready for that. People are not ready to hear who financed Hitler and why. People are not ready to hear this stuff.
Well, in fact, the Rothschilds financed both sides. I mean, the money was being financed.
It wasn't just Hitler. It wasn't just Hitler. They financed the Bolsheviks and the Germans. But
and as you said, Ron, you know, I mean, Stalin killed a lot more people than Hitler ever did. Yet Hitler is this big villain. But Stalin, because he's a communist and they want to push communism still today on the world. That, you know, he wasn't that big a deal. He was a lone wolf. He was just a little bit crazy.
Right.
He killed at least twice as many people as Hitler.
I would say it's more like about 6 to 10.
I think the figures in Germany are greatly exaggerated, but that's another conversation for another time.
Indeed. But
Absolutely.
anyway, I mean, the point of my article that I'm trying to work in here is that I think that you know, there are a lot of comparisons made to Trump and to Hitler, and some of them are actually, in my opinion, they could be actually considered quite accurate, because I think that what Hitler was trying to prevent against, or at least from Germany's perspective, the German people who were fighting were trying to save Western Europe from what they saw what was going on in Bolshevik Russia, and they believed that was coming. So that was one of the reasons why they fought with such tenacity and ferocity.
Well, also the economic system. I mean, there is definitely a lot of evidence coming out, and David Irvin and many. I mean, obviously some of that evidence is very old.
Yes.
Regarding the Hitler standing up against the Rothschild banking system, or whatever you want to call it, the central banking system. I mean, I find it interesting, having lived in the Middle East for a number of years, you know, over a decade ago, with Libya, with Iraq, all these countries that went up against the central banking system were taken out. To me, I just
that was
and again, if you go to the Nazi propaganda from 1935 and 33, the things they published as preambles to their laws, they explicitly called out two groups: the Jews, which he meant the Jewish bankers. That's true, that's in there. But he says the Jews and the Freemasons. And again, nobody talks about the fact that Hitler hated the Freemasons as much or more than he hated the Jews and the Jewish bankers. And they don't even talk about that. So he was clearly signaling, I'm going to war with these people. And the first thing he did was not persecute the Jews. He got rid of all the Freemasons. Those are the first people he killed, the first people whose temples that he tore down was the Freemasons. So he considered them, I think, enemy number one. So there's
really what
so much
it is.
history we don't know.
It's. I mean, some people call it Luciferian. I mean, Sasha Stone talks about this and uses the term Sabbatean. I think it's a greater word that is basically anti-human. And the whatever that language is they don't support we the people. They don't support the idea of people having rights. They don't support freedom, and they want a global tyrannical system.
Yeah, and individual choice over your own existence. That's really what this is about, right? Yeah.
And it's why I find myself on the American shores fighting for this, because this is without the United States in its true essence, the world crumbles. There's no other way. England falls. Well, England's already fallen, all but. You know, Europe falls. Even my beloved Italy. I love Italy. I mean, thank God for Meloni. But my gosh, is it tough? Because they're still asleep, the people of Europe, because they've been so heavily indoctrinated. And so part of this whole journey is a re-education program, a reimagining, a remembrance, and back to nature. This is where the spirit comes in.
I think what you know what you're talking about there is about the how they've been re-educated. That started the re-education of Europe really started post World War II, when everything had been destroyed. The Allies came in, and with the Marshall Plan and all their money, and they started funding all this stuff. But what they were teaching, what all the stuff that they were teaching there and in the United States as well, was this soft Marxist crap.
Yeah.
And the first generation that they really launched the full frontal assault on was the baby boomers of the guys who had fought World War II in the United States in the 1960s, because you had one segment of the population that was essentially forced to go over to fight a war that they didn't really want to fight. And then you had the other half of the population, or at least in the younger generation, being fed tons of music from Tavistock telling them how anti-war they were. And so they were creating this cultural divide. And then that's not even incorporating into the race, the race conflict that they were trying to have with the Civil Rights Act. So, I mean, the 60s is where you really started to see the manifestations of the things that the globalists had been doing and implementing in the United States, going back as far as the early 19-teens.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. That's very true.
Well, the show wouldn't be a show unless we have a segment on flat Earth. So I have one queued up here because I'm not a flat earther and I'm not a round earther. I just don't know what I am when it comes to that. It's a confusing subject. And I got to come to the defense of the flat earthers. I think they make a lot of sense. Mathematically speaking, I'm steering towards that end, but I'm not saying, yes, that's what it is. It could be concave. It could be much bigger. It could be much smaller. Nobody knows, because we're a bunch of imbeciles who went to school to be brainwashed, paying taxes into a system that was using our money to lie to us, which is amazing. But anyway, that's how we fund the police system, and the police system pulls you over and gives you a ticket. And they can't pull you over because those cars are bought with taxpayers' money, right? If they didn't have cars, they can't pull you over.
Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit there, Mel, because I don't believe that that's taxpayer money. Those are Federal Reserve notes coming out of Washington. And see, you got to understand, so somebody mentioned earlier how that we had tariffs and how we were a really rich country. Well, when they implemented the Federal Reserve Act, and I think Wilson signed it in 1913, but it didn't really come into being and active until 1920. So it was just after the First World War, and that was where you had the Roaring '20s, because I had all that free money it was coming out.
William McKinley. We were very rich under William McKinley.
100%, and we had a big trade surplus and a budget surplus prior to that. But what the Federal Reserve did was it completely reversed the flow of money. Prior to the Federal Reserve, money had to come in from the states, and it went to Washington, D.C. to fund the federal government.
Yes.
All right. When the Federal Reserve came into being, what it did is now the federal government prints the money and sends it out to the states. And what that did is that centralized power in Washington, D.C. over the states.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can draw an analogy, it would be like you and your wife have a child, and you become destitute in your elderly age, and your child wins the lottery, and he gets to tell you everything that you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and when you're going to do it. And if you want to have sustenance or be sustained, you have to abide by what your son is telling you to do. And because the federal government is the child of born out of the states, which is the parents.
Yeah. Again, guys, I forgot to mention the telephone number. Volunteers for the movie DearMrPresident.net, not .com. DearMrPresident.net. Telephone number in case you want to get in touch with me, not to chit chat, strictly for business.
I'm going to have to shoot off now, unfortunately.
No worries, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed it.
It was great to talk to you, George.
You
Bye,
too,
George.
Ron. I look forward to more of this. Very good. Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
Absolutely. So volunteers, my Google line is 786-704-8817. I'll repeat that number, 786-704-8817. You can send me a text message, say I'm friends with somebody who owns a movie theater, or I'll help you find some movie theaters. We need one in Los Angeles. We need one in New York. We need one in Miami. We have potentially one in Hawaii right now. We'll know sometime maybe by next week. But it's a little bit of an uphill battle. It's a grind. I'm not going to bullshit you. But let's go ahead and play this video on Flat Earth and tell me what you guys think.
There ain't nobody convincing me that the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour around the vacuum of space. There also ain't nobody convincing me that the sun is 93 million miles away. Just look at the crepuscular rays coming from the sun. Do you really think if the sun was 93 million miles away and able to light up this whole realm, that they would be blocked out by them little clouds? Just think about it. No matter how high you go, the Earth is still flat and stationary. We would feel velocity from spinning 1,000 miles an hour. But this is Earth, guys. This is God's terrarium. This is the beautiful, beautiful world, enclosed system that we have been given as the spirits of the light. But obviously, for sensory reasons, this was just for entertainment. Like, you know, the Earth is actually spinning 1,000 miles an hour, and I can totally see curvature. No matter how high I go, the curvature is always there. I'm as fictional as a dinosaur, baby.
So, would you look? If nothing else, you have to admit one thing: highly entertaining, right?
Yeah, dude. Can I use the word? R-E-T. Can I use that word? Can I use that word, or am I going to get you in trouble?
Retarded?
Yeah, yes, retarded. These people are fucking retarded. Okay, there's nothing you can. I tried to do a Twitter space yesterday or Saturday with some 911 truthers, and you can't talk sense to them. No matter how many facts you give them, they just list off all this stuff that's completely wrong. It's 100% wrong. And it's like the flat earthers are the same way. They're just loonies. And here's the thing, pal, let me explain it to you. You're in what's called a non-inertial frame of reference. Okay? Think about this. Do you believe you've ever flown on an airplane? If the answer is yes, you have. And then you've been in a non-inertial frame of reference. When you're in that plane, Mel, do you get any sense whatsoever that you're traveling 500 miles an hour? No. If you throw a ball to the back of the airplane and somebody catches it, it's not going to travel 540 miles an hour. It's going to travel whatever speed you throw it because you're in a non-inertial frame of reference, a self-contained object. That's what the Earth is. God, these people are stupid.
Bravo, Michael. Bravo. I couldn't have articulated that.
What do you guys tend to believe? You tend to believe it's round?
Oh, it's spherical, absolutely, because everything in the universe spins. And when you have a spinning molten plasma, there was just a great episode that the Y-Files did about how planets are birthed. I helped them write it. And it's pretty clear that planets actually spin off of super massive rotating suns like ours, and then just spin out and cool down and become the rocky worlds of the gas giants that we know now. That's how the process works, because it's all based on the fact that everything in existence is constantly rotating, it's constantly spinning, it's constantly moving, and you do not get a flat snow globe with that sort of creation process. And we can see that all over the universe. So yeah, come on. Plus there's a lot, all you need is one of the pictures of the bridges or the power lines, going over the horizon. It's pretty easy to figure out we're living on a sphere.
Hey, man, agreed.
Well,
I never subscribed to I never subscribed to flat Earth. Now I will say, like you said, Mel, I think sometimes they have some fairly compelling points of interest, but that's. People who have may have some compelling points, but that doesn't mean that they're in totality they're accurate.
Well, there've been There've been a number of tests using lasers and things
Mhm.
like that have shown the Earth is curved. You know,
Yeah.
the flat earthers have even said, well, you know, if I hold up this target and the laser hits it, that means the Earth is flat and the laser doesn't hit it, or the opposite thing.
Well, let me.
And so it's like, and they still won't. You still get 20 guys citing you 20 other points, all of which are pretty much wrong. You know, oh, what about this? And what about this? Well, how many times do I have to prove to you that it's curved before you accept that it's curved? That's the first question. Anyway,
when I served in the Navy, I served on a battleship. I served on the USS New Jersey, and that was a World War II era battleship, and we had these huge 16-inch guns, and we'd fire one of those things, and the shell was like, I don't know, it was like 2 tons, or a ton rather, and there was enough gunpowder in that thing to make it go almost 30 miles. Now, I could see with binoculars looking out over the ocean, I could see the plume of water rising up over the horizon but I couldn't see the base of the of where the water was coming up from. I couldn't see the base. I could only see from, probably about, I'd say maybe, 20 feet above where the base would have been. So, I mean, that's, every pilot that I've ever talked to, I mean, if the Earth was flat, you would have to completely change air traffic routes. And it's, I don't know, there's just so many things that would not make sense anymore if you subscribe to the flat Earth thing. And Mike, you mentioned something about talking to people in the 9/11 truth community, and I'm that 9/11 was my red pill moment, back in 2004. And I still to this day always retain an open mind when I look at stuff like that. But one of the things that just absolutely drives me batshit crazy is the notion that people say, "Oh, well, it's the planes were holograms." I mean, I just that to me that's about as nonsensical as looking at as calling the Earth flat.
The planes were holograms and explosives were pre-placed. And then they used ray guns to vaporize the Twin Towers to bring them down. And it's like,
come on, those are very sensible words on here on this channel.
It's far easier to just
very sensitive words.
Hijack the airplanes and fly them into.
Yeah, you can't talk that. You can't talk that here, bro.
Sorry.
We can't do it. I mean,
sorry.
These guys,
you have to be.
I can't keep track of what we can talk about.
You have to be very careful with the words. Unfortunately, that's the censorship algorithm.
Yeah, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our new channel. Amber, if you're still listening, put it up again and I'll post it. But anyway, I think we covered everything. XRP is up to $2.26, almost 27. Wow, something must have happened. It jumped up 3.65%. That's amazing.
You guys want to see something really cool?
Sure.
Oh, kitten. Oh, I got my kitty here too.
A Bengal kitten.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful. It was my wife when I was in Vegas. Were you in Vegas, by the way, Ron?
I did not get up there, brother.
So I wanted to meet you, and
I know. It was last minute. It just wasn't going to work out.
Interesting.
Oh, we lost.
The most important thing that I'm doing right now in my life, to be quite honest with you, is our healing center in Cape Canaveral. I can tell you one thing for sure: if everybody in Brevard County understood what we have, right, and they would literally, understand that we do have a frequency that allows the body to charge the cells to 90 millivolts, and the body can reverse every freaking disease. I can tell you emphatically, if everybody in Brevard County knew that, even if I had the entire top floor, which is like 40,000 square feet, I would not be able to accommodate the amount of people that would be coming through the door. There'd be like a 2-year waiting list just to get through the door. That's what we have. And it blows me away when they go in for that shot, with the CR, right? The C and the one that ends with R. Okay. And they do that treatment every month or whatever that costs like $18,000. It blows me away that people actually do that to their body and deplete their entire immune system. It's crazy. But and there is an answer. The answer is frequency, vibration, and sound will be the new medicine of the next century and the next maybe millennia. So guys, don't forget, Dear Mr. President, dearmrpresident.net, not .com. Spread it out there because they've already put it into the algorithms that this is a big no-no because they know that we're coming after them. And this is going to be coffin nails to the social media platforms who think that they could just do business in America and they could thumb their nose at the freedom of speech. Hey, listen, they got something coming that is going to be explosive. And it's coming and they can't stop it. You know why? Because there's a movement happening behind the scenes. And this movie might not be playing on YouTube, probably not, but we will talk about it and maybe share little pieces of it here and there, the ones that are shareable. And then we're going to drive the traffic to where it's at. And most likely it's going to be at Rumble for the time being. And absolutely the actual documentary website itself, which is dearmrpresident.net. Guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Ron, thank you for coming.
You're welcome, man. Oh, my pleasure, man.
Come anytime you want.
Okay, appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.